Buckle up. It's the Insurance Dudes podcast.
Dude, I want to get a little bit into we've had a lot of conversations about work and business and everything, and a lot of insurance dudes. Well, let's talk about the trends in general. Super successful people tend to have a workout regimen, and you got a little bit into that a second ago about how training the brain to win, right? Training the brain. So how does that correlate with business? And what have you seen as far as something that would help business people to think about when it comes to?
Sure. And there's so many things. Like when you look at working out and taking and adopting a healthy lifestyle, there's just no argument against it, right? There just is not. It enhances everything, right? The better physical condition that you're in, to a certain extent, because then that's where people start getting, I call it the athletic freak or the fitness freak, right? It's a kind of an unprecedented time along those lines because people didn't used to work out year round. Right. So now we're seeing people that are, especially the CEO go-getter sales types, they do a lot of it to basically, it's to kind of supplement to help them with other things. Right. So then it's like they end up doing the same things over and over and over again. Right. So then they end up having injuries or, what we see, and I'll kind of go back to some of the basics. So there's some pretty cool research. I want to say that was out of the University of Pittsburgh that shows that, basically if you're trying to adhere to a diet, and kind of vice versa with this, you need to exercise and do your diet at the same time because you get better results, right? And when the question becomes why, but what it really comes down to is goal setting. So depending on how formal or informal you're being, goals, it's a whole law of attraction, right? It directs the focus of your attention in the right places. So whenever you're, whatever it is, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, 7 days a week, if you're setting the time and saying, okay, whether you're going to a workout class or you're doing a workout in your garage or whatever, at 1 o'clock on these days, I'm going to show up for this workout program, and you keep doing that, it strengthens your self-efficacy. Right? That's the first thing, because I've already set this goal and I've achieved it. So you keep doing that. And we know like flow states and whatnot. And my favorite quote from the book Flow is, once I've tasted this joy, I will redouble my efforts just to taste it again. Right. And he's talking about flow. So as you keep doing that, the process starts to strengthen itself. But, it's not just, a habit. It's also this, positive benefit that you're also getting from strengthening your body and improving your physical capability, right? And there's, again, more research on that. The more physically capable you are, the more confident you are, right? And there's so many things, especially for females. Actually, that's what I just got done on my little webinar, talking about every characteristic across the board, especially for females compared to males, improves their, likelihood to not marry an abusive spouse, or to basically complete high school or college, or to basically avoid abusing drugs and alcohol. If they're somebody that engages in sports or fitness 5 to 6 days a week, you see it in huge improvement along those lines, right? But from, basically this whole idea of building your confidence, right, and committing to this exercise program or nutrition program or whatever it is, you also have these physiological benefits. The number one being what's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So if you see one of the big issues, I think, and this is even when I was coming through early on, a lot of people are looking for, what are called nootropics or nootropics. You guys are familiar with that term? Like Adderall would be an example, right? Which is basically methamphetamine, which is something that, are a lot of our, high achiever people are taking, exogenous drugs to do things to enhance their mindset or whatever, their cognitive capability, right? But they're not sleeping, they're not eating healthy, right? They're not, getting their exercise, and they're super stressed all of the time. And we have this hormone in our and neurotransmitter in our brains that's also partially associated with Alzheimer's disease as well. This brain-derived neurotrophic factor is what helps to create new neurological connections in the body and in the brain, especially when we engage in some type of intense, focused experience like we see in flow. right? And so, flow is that, again, that state of this time when, or this period when things slow down and, we're engaged in this activity just for the sake of the activity of itself, that we're so focused on it in this moment because the challenge is basically being placed equal to our capabilities. It puts us into this certain mindset, and then it triggers these hormonal responses and these neurotransmitter type of responses in the body that helps us to become more resilient and more effective at these type of things that we're trying to engage in later. So the body is engaged in this adaptation process to strengthen us, not only psychologically, but also physiologically as well. It works really well. And coming back to the Adderall situation, right? It's like, well, first we need to get our sleep together, right? Our sleep is the most important thing. There's a new term called insufficient sleep syndrome, where basically you're ending up in this chronic sleep deprived situation. And Matt Walker has a book called Why We Sleep. And then there's some other books on the great courses about sleeping. And then ultimately your nutrition, right? You're in which you can't really think about your nutrition and your exercise without putting sleep first, because your body is not going to respond to your nutrition and exercise correctly. And eventually you're going to have a breakdown, right? So a lot of people, especially high achievers, they forget about their sleep. And I did this at one time myself, where I basically burnt myself out because in my mind, I'm going, okay, I'm stressed out, so I need to exercise. Right. So I kept exercising despite the fact that I was super stressed. And it was like the compounding of the two stressors coming together actually caused my body to shut down even more. And I ended up having to back off. And one of the reasons why I say that, is a big issue to me, because before that moment, I would have told you that I didn't even believe in stress. Right. It was like, stress doesn't exist. That's for weak people. Right. And I, being a college wrestler, right, get that mentality. And I still, had that mentality in my, mid to late 20s. But, I decided to start a business and try to do something that had kind of never been done in physical therapy before. And I really didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I knew that my mission and my purpose was, worth, becoming a martyr if I had to, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it.
So interesting. And you've seen a lot of these similarities with high performers. You're working with professional athletes with, the extreme of high performance, right? I mean, an NFL quarterback is about the highest level of pressure, the highest level of success that you can get to in professional sports. And it's just remarkable. What are some of the same things that you see consistent across those high achievers? Like, do you see mental preparation, like meditation, working through all of these different areas of their life to make sure that they're achieving those results?
Yeah, I would say, it's really interesting because you have kind of the do-it-yourself person, and then you have the other person that or the other athlete that's going to use all their resources that they have available to them. And, one of the first things that I noticed about Rhonda after I had been working with her for a while, and I had had the fortunate, circumstances of working with some other Olympic athletes and Olympic medalists, earlier on in my career. And one day I went over to their place to start the rehab. And I was like, hey, the one thing I really noticed about you is that you really exude all of the characteristics of an Olympian. Right. Versus I've worked with a lot of other, professional fighters as well. And it's just not the same as the Olympics, right? Number one, the incentive to do it isn't there financially and all of those things. And you also are typically lacking in resources as an Olympic athlete, especially in this country. When you look at the other countries, they're government sponsored programs. So they get everything, taken care of. And it was real cool because I got to talk to her a lot. And that was one of the best parts about talking to her. She was a real master. That was another thing that I learned. And I've seen with most of these high level athletes, they are absolutely a master black belt ninja at what they do. Even the guys from the NFL, you talk to them and I think about this all the time because people will try to compare NFL quarterbacks or any position to the past. And it's like, you really can't do that. These guys that are on the field today and on the court or whatever the sport is, they are the absolute best that has ever been in the history of the world at this sport. They are so specialized in what they do. They are, again, the black belt ninja of what they do. So what I've seen with the best athletes is that, and this is probably across the board, the difference between what you see with the even above athletes, and especially your amateur and high school and college athletes, is the best athletes know how to use their resources. Right. They especially somebody like me that's a physical therapist, right? Where, if your average person out on the street sprains their ankle tomorrow, they walk it off, they put it in the ice, maybe they go to their doctor, they go to the emergency room, whatever it is. They never even think to see a physical therapist, right? And that professional athlete, the first person they're going to call is their physical therapist, because they know that we're the correct resource to intervene at that time. Right. And they surround themselves with the best teams of people that they can. So number one, and this is what I was going to say, the common thing that I see across the board with athletes is this unnecessary level of stress, trying to figure out the totality of everything that they have to understand to compete at the highest level, right? The speed of play and everything that they're doing is already off the charts, but there's so many variables now that they're trying to understand, especially when it comes to strength and conditioning and nutrition, or coming off of an injury. So when you see them, they're very stressed out about it, and they just want to know what's right. Right? Tell me what the right things to do are, and I will do them. Most of these people are so disciplined. And again, if they're bought into who you are and what you do, they will follow your plan. And unfortunately, what I see, and I think what got me real passionate, especially as an ex-athlete, is that they tend to end up going to people that don't know what they're talking about. And what I ended up seeing throughout my career was that if you don't really understand how the injuries happen, then it makes it really hard to understand how to train people correctly, right? So if you don't have a really good physical therapy base, it makes it even harder to understand how you're going to basically do a typical strength and conditioning program. So it creates all of these holes, which they recognize. They know that there's these holes there, but they don't know how to fill those holes. So there's a huge sense of anxiety a lot of the time. So, and they want somebody to calm that anxiety down by giving them, here's what you need to do, follow this recipe, and then the masters, they understand how to manipulate that recipe. And that was what Rhonda and I talked a ton about, because she was already past that point where she understood all of the basic stuff. And now she was working on this level of mastery that was a lot different.
So those same principles can apply in any space, not necessarily as a professional athlete, but just managing, number one, the resources you have, and then the most ultimate resource, which is your time, right? You have to be regimented with that time.
Exactly. Yeah. And schedule management, right, is a huge issue when it comes to everything. But for those athletes, the schedules that they go by, it's pretty crazy. How much of their time is spent on their craft, doing the things that they need to do, whether it's from an injury prevention standpoint, media obligations, and all of the things that they have going along those lines, or the actual prep for their competitions. I mean, that's why most people aren't professional athletes. That's actually the thing that separates them. I used to say that all the time, like, professional athletes are professionals. Right? They have this code of conduct that you can't fake it till you make it, right? You have to become that person. And that's one of the reasons why I got into self-efficacy, because it's really about your self-image. And if your self-image is misaligned with what you're trying to accomplish, you're just going to keep running into problem after a problem, burnout, and you're ultimately going to end up, somewhere you don't want to be, right?
Right. So along the lines of that, if for all the insurance dudes, business dudes out there that want to perform at a high level, what are some things, eating, sleeping, workout, and things along the lines of a professional athlete would do? What are some things that they can do to perform their best at their job 24 hours?
Love it.
Right. So, the first thing that, and I talk about this a lot, is that all excuses are lies, right? It's the Jocko Willing thing, yeah. Right? Is that, you can try to self-talk yourself into these different mindsets, but what works has been tried and true, right? I think one of the big challenges is that people is finding something that's enjoyable, number one, right? And because that's the thing that usually stops people. And this would be another one of my principles, right? Is you basically have to learn how to delay gratification. And it's one of the biggest challenges. You have to start figuring out how to embrace and enjoy the process, right? On some level, but you have to align that with something that you enjoy. Right. And so sometimes people make themselves miserable. And I know people that are fine with that. Right. They're like, hey, I'm going to spend the next 20 years, my life's focused on making money. Right. And not necessarily focused on their health and their well-being. But that ends up coming into play with even just how much money you're going to make. You're not going to do as well if you're in worse physical condition because it's so connected to your cognitive performance. You'll never know where your ceiling is and where your peak is if you're not at your physical functioning best. Right. And I think that that whole idea of being sustainable for the long term is the big issue. Most of our failures when it comes to behavioral change and any type of process that somebody's going to engage in to try to improve their performance with something, they end up using programs or tactics that aren't sustainable. And those tactics and programs, they're just not as attractive all the time, right? But the attractive ones are usually being, sold by the snake oil salesman. And that's why I always come back to, it's like, well, that's one of the reasons why physical therapists aren't in the mainstream, because what we do isn't sexy a lot of the time, right? People don't want to do these, basic band exercises and all of those things. So you guys will know this too with anything that is successful. You have to start out with some type of needs analysis, right? Or an evaluation. And again, coming back to those pro athletes, that's one of the reasons why they bring experts in like me, is so I can help them evaluate their situation and do specific assessments to determine what needs need to be addressed and where we're going to intervene, and putting those things in a priority list. So that ends up being the problem with the sustainability. You typically don't start with the end in mind. And then when you do get started, you don't start with an evaluation. So you're not getting the feedback that you need. And then you're not reassessing as you go. So when you look at motor learning and functional training and really just success in general, you look at business, you have to be getting feedback or metrics or something to determine where your functional progress is actually being made. So, or your lack of functional progress, because otherwise you're just playing a guessing game. There's a really good book by Patrick Lencioni called The Advantage, and it's all about basically human resources and organizational health. And that's one of the things that he talks about, is that if you're not getting the correct feedback, especially like from your boss or your higher ups, then you're going to start hallucinating. Right. You're going to start. I always joke around. It's kind of like if you guys went out of town to Las Vegas this weekend and you're basically out till 4 a.m. and you haven't called your wives. Right. What are they going to start thinking? Right. They want that phone call so they can go, Jason and Craig, they're cool, man. They gave me that call. I know where they're at. No worries. They don't want to. Maybe at this point they don't even want to talk to you. Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. But they do want that feedback to know what's going on, right? So if they don't get that feedback, they start going nuts. And that's kind of, again, this is the same thing what I was talking about, the anxiety that happens with the athletes. They're not getting the correct feedback, and they know, right? They know when there's more information to be gathered at that point. With that said, you have to start taking action sometimes when you don't have all of the information, right? So having somebody that can help point you in the direction, or following a curriculum or a program or something that was created by somebody that has an expertise or an experience with this stuff is huge for that. Oh, is that good there?
Yeah. Oh, I
love it. Literally writing it all down.
Knowledge nuggets.
Yeah. Well, being successful is the same. Right. And that's why I love what I do as my job, because I see people when they're at a very low level of function. Right. And one of the things that we see is that people are very similar when they're in a lot of pain. Jason can probably attest to this with his back. People are very similar, and, humans are very equal when you see them when they're in pain and have a lot of dysfunction. Then when they start getting better, all of a sudden, I joke about this all the time, is that, people hurt their leg, whatever, ACL, Achilles, or whatever. They may have never ran before in their life. And the next question they're asking you is, when can I run? And it's like, did you even run? Did you even run before? Right. But they start getting that in their head, and the cool part is that they want to keep making this functional progression, because like begets like, right? Like I was just saying, that they get that enjoyable experience and they want more of that. Right. So
Right.
that alignment is really huge, but they wouldn't be able to do that without us. They need us to be able to say, hey, look, put this first step forward in this direction, right? Strengthen this muscle, stretch this thing. Here's what you need to do at home. Here's what you need to think about when you're sitting at your desk, and, your posture and all of these, hacks that we give people, that is what allows them to continue to progress. But then they're also coming back to us as a sounding board and going, hey, am I doing what I'm supposed to do? I had this weird feeling, blah, blah, blah. But they have this resource to come back to so they can keep guiding themselves down the process. Right. Once you get, out of that, that's the scary part. And we see the issue with it, health insurance particularly, is that they don't usually keep paying for you have 20 visits on an ACL tear that lasts you about 2 months. And now you're supposed to do, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to rehab yourself. I mean, are you supposed to, just, go to, Wikipedia or Instagram and figure out how that process works? And it doesn't work for
YouTube,
unfortunately. Right. And that's, that's been one of my big passions for all of this, because there's such a huge disparity between what the average person out there gets and what a professional athlete gets. Yeah. Right. And that was what I saw early on when I was at the University of Cincinnati. I was pretty jaded about it, actually, as a, Division II college athlete. And then I went to a Division I school and working with the Bengals, and you see what they get, and it's night and day. It's not even close.
Wow.
Crazy. Well, Lyneil, thank you so much, man. Dropping some bombs for us.
I hope you guys liked it. I hope it worked out.
Oh, it's awesome.
Awesome.
So good.
Awesome.
If anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you? What website should they go to? Do you still have the cheat diet up?
It's not up. Yeah, we're revamping all of that stuff right now. It's kind of bad timing for us, for me to do some type of self-promotion, but that's okay. If anybody's really interested, I have programs on nutrition and fitness and everything, right? I'm kind of a jack of all trades when it comes with that stuff. It all fits the territory. You can message me on Instagram, would probably be the easiest thing, at Dr. Lyneil. It's DrLyneil, or you can contact us through the website. It's www.physiogym, FYZIO, like it says on the shirt here, FYZIO gym.com. And, we can get back to you really easy on there. We have a Facebook page and all of that stuff, but we're literally, like Jason and I have been talking about, I'm rolling out some, online courses along those lines right now. But yeah, the cheat meal diet is something that I have a big passion about, that I'm looking forward to getting out there for people.
Well, cool. And if you can't remember that, you can just follow us and look through our, the people we're following, and you'll find him in there. And of course, you can always text us at 520-214-2219, and we will text you that information.
Yeah, one of the things I want to add to this, and this is just for everybody in general, is that most physical therapists, not just including myself, will do a free consultation, right? So the evaluation that we provide is very, very, beneficial. I had a client that I was doing a virtual consult with the other day, had bilateral carpal tunnel surgery. And basically his doctor had said, hey, just go back to work and work on some exercises on your own. You'll be fine, right? You don't need to go to physical therapy. And that's because most of the time when you think of physical therapy, they're thinking of it as an intervention instead of us as a specialist doing an evaluation to help you with the problems that you're having, right? So most PTs will do a free consultation. So don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call us, because there's so much of a unique body of knowledge that we have that you're not going to get from anybody else. You're not going to get the same evaluation from any other practitioner other than a physical therapist.
I remember,
and I'd love to help anybody that I could.
I remember Jason before he went, he's like, "Oh, my wife's been, and then he finally went, and he's like, "Oh man, I love going to the."
Dude, I was walking crooked. I literally couldn't walk, and I was walking crooked. I couldn't do anything, and Lyneil and I were working, and he was having me on the wobbler, which is something he's coming out with real soon. That's amazing.
Ooh, I want a wobbler.
Oh, nice! And
I couldn't hike my left hip. I literally couldn't hike it. My brain thought it was happening, but it wasn't, and I would never have known that at all ever if we didn't work together. Because and then we started working on it. And now, obviously, I mean, I can do it again, but it's like it was one of those like neurological type things that Lyneil was talking about earlier.
And now he can dunk.
It's crazy. And now I can duck.
We're working on that part. Can I tie into the wobbler and everything real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
100%.
Yeah. So when you look at that, Jason, and this comes, back to, I don't remember, but I knew you were going to the other PT place that I worked at to start at. And, one of the things that coming back to my recommendation about seeing a PT is to see a sports PT, particularly because we look at the fitness aspect of things. You're not going to get that as much. And your problem that you had is probably going to continue to get missed because we don't consider running an activity of daily living in healthcare. Right. So only the sports PT world really focuses on that. So if you talk to your PCP or your orthopedic or whatever, so the wobbler, right, is a device that I got involved in when I ended up getting into this other specialized training program that was designed to basically bridge the gap between physical therapy and sports performance. And that was what Troy Polamalu's strength and conditioning coach, unfortunately, Marv Marinovich, which, I would imagine a lot of your viewers will know who Marv Marinovich is. He was they had a big ESPN 30 for 30 documentary on him and his son. Todd Marinovich was a quarterback at USC and for the Oakland Raiders and got into all these drug problems. But Marv was the first strength and conditioning coach in the NFL. And he basically was the kind of the creator of the NFL Combine. So I ended up getting into this program that was designed to take all these physical therapy principles from return to sports and create a training system from them. So had I not gone through that training system that I went through with this group, I might not even have been ever able to help you because I wouldn't have understood what I understand about running mechanics and all of this stuff that goes into, again, if you have back pain and you get the ability to walk up and down the stairs, the healthcare profession is like, hey, we did a great job, but that's not enough, right? If we leave you down here, you're just going to drop down even further. And historically, what we see is that, you continue to deal with that pain. Then you end up with diabetes and all these other things because your physical activity continues to drop because you're avoiding from that fear that we were just talking about. You avoid doing the physical activity that you need to do, and you don't have the confidence as well. So it becomes a roadblock for everything. And then all of a sudden you become, I'm Jason with the back pain. Right. That becomes your new self-image. Right.
That's what I was. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, working on your athleticism is the key. And then this new product and the reason why I want to talk about it, we just got it done. And so the plastic version that we got converted from the steel version, we just finalized it and we're planning on rolling them out next week. So I'm like super excited about it because it's been a long process of working on this product. So it's going to be an exciting thing to, entrepreneurially move forward with and see what shakes out.
So
dude,
awesome.
So anybody that's listening, follow Lyneil so you can watch the process of him releasing this. There's going to be a ton of great content. I know that he's going to provide on how to use it and everything else. So cool, man. Love it. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you, Lyneil.
First one in the books, man. We've been talking about this for a while.
Love it.
I know. I'm so glad
we'll check in with you down the road. We'd love to have you back on. Thanks, Lyneil.
That'd be awesome.
Okay. Bye.
Cool.
I love it. Later.
Hey, Jason.
Yes, Mr. Craig.
That was another awesome episode, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if people want to get a little bit more action and learn how to write 100,000 in premium off of even the worst internet leads, where could they go?
They can go to live.teledudes.com.
Ooh, that sounds exciting. Are we going to be there?
Yes. It's a weekly call that we're doing right now it's live and it will show you the process, the entire process. Super awesome.
I love it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Sign up right now, live.teledudes.com.
Live.teledudes.com. That's live.teledudes.com.
Hey, Craig, there's a new community that we are starting that I cannot wait to tell everybody about. It is our live texting community where you and I are going to answer people's questions and give them free content, right?
Are you kidding me? We get to talk to them?
Yeah, which is awesome, but they have to opt in. They have to text us at 520-214-2219. That's 520-214-2219.
Nice.
Craig, are you going to respond to these texts?
I'm going to respond to them for sure. Live.
I'm into it too. It's going to be awesome. and it's going to be our new texting community where we're going to get back to everybody that we can and drop some crazy content, free content, and free the calculator that you just came up with. That's right. The calling calculator, sales material. I mean, everything for insurance agents. This is it. It's the best texting community out there for insurance agents.
Well, what the heck is that number again? I can't remember it.
It's 520-214-2219. That's
Okay.
520-214-2219.
I love it. I'm going to text it right now.
520-214-2219.
All right. I'll see you later, Mr. Jason.
Bye, Mr. Craig.
Wait, do they even listen to this on the radio anymore?
I love it. I love it.
Nice.
All right.